Hello everyone and good evening. I am Poorva Deshpande, Behavioral Analyst and Assistant Manager from Brainbug Knowledge Solutions Private Limited. And on the occasion of International Women's Week, we at Brainbug, we are celebrating a special edition and we have a very renowned personality today for our interview, Dr. Sadhana Natu. She is an associate, hello ma'am, she is an associate professor and head of the department Modern College, Ganeshkhind, Pune. And she has 30 plus years of experience in teaching and industry, having many awards in her name, one major award being Innovative Teacher Award of Pune University. A research guide with national and international research publications. She is also a book writer. That's a great thing, ma'am. So today we surely have someone with an extensive background in teaching, industry, NGOs, consultations, counseling, research, and publication. And I really welcome you, a very, very warm welcome. It's an honor to have you here, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody at Brainbug for inviting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. So, ma'am, let's start with the interview. I would like to know, how was your journey in this field of psychology?
Okay, since it is a 30 plus years journey, I'll try and describe it in a nutshell. I work across sectors and domains. So primarily, I'm an educator and an academician. You gave my affiliation. So I've been heading this department of psychology at Modern College. And I'm also involved with the university in terms of designing syllabi, curricula, and I work in a multidisciplinary fashion across academics. So psychology is one discipline with which, of course, I'm deeply connected. The other disciplines are gender studies, right, sociology, social work, and other social sciences as well, and also health science. So my work in academics also stretches quite a bit. The second domain that I work in is NGO research organizations and community-based organizations, especially those working on issues of, once again, gender, youth and mental health, physical as well as mental health. So I'm an advisor to a number of these organizations, and I have also conducted commissioned research projects with them. Absolutely. My third area of work is with corporates, where I work as an external expert on their prevention of sexual harassment cells. I do similar work in this area in academics, that is academic organizations, and also NGOs. So that's another area of work. My fourth area of work is as a practitioner. So I have my own private practice, and I also head the counseling cell of our institution. Another thing that I do is research. So obviously that is my own individual research projects and also commissioned research projects. Absolutely. And I write, and I'm deeply interested in performing arts. So I have curated and run the performing arts circle of my institution too. So since this is multi-domain, multi-sector work, it has been full of chills, thrills, and spills across such a long span. And it's been a roller coaster ride. So I have enjoyed it thoroughly, and I still continue to enjoy it because I have always been trying to push the envelope in all my capacities. And the other challenges, because I'm not a mainstream psychologist. Right. All my work is as a feminist and critical psychologist. Right. So again, I have opened, unopened doors and taken on a lot, but one is happy so far.
So yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you, ma'am, with so much of extensive experience in so many multidisciplinary areas. So my another question to you, coming to the very point, what do you think are the challenges faced by women in the field of psychology?
If I have to talk about students and young researchers,
Yeah.
Not all women, but those from marginalized sections, that is, rural women, or those who are coming from smaller towns to metro, mini metro cities. I see them facing more challenges than women who are already settled here in these spaces. So, across sectors of psychology, I see these young women, and not just women, but men from marginalized sections in psychology also struggling. And I have tried my best to mentor as many of these people and reach out to them in as many ways. They undergo a number of hurdles. We have this social cultural capital of English. Both of us are also speaking in English, but you're aware that there are Indian languages, and since we are in Pune, Maharashtra, there are a number of them who study in Marathi medium.
Absolutely.
And that is a distinct disadvantage for girls and also boys who do not come with this baggage. So their struggles are many. They have a number of skills, but then they have to master this language which has currency, because majority of the work of psychology happens in English. But I'm really happy that across community-based organizations now, you require several languages, including English. So some things are changing, and I'm very happy about them. The other problem is, if one is talking about all kinds of women in psychology, unfortunately, many of them have to remain employees. They really cannot become professionals, because that requires 24/7 work, different kinds of engagements where you need support and participation from family, social support systems, and institutions. And I'm not seeing that happening at the speed in which it should have happened.
Yeah, absolutely, ma'am. I agree to this totally. Yeah, so as we were talking about women and women in psychology, and you come from a feminist background as well. So who is that one woman in your life that inspires you?
This is a tricky question for me, because when I work across sectors, I have several women and men in mind who have been my role models at different junctures. So it's very tough to describe, one individual. So there are several researchers, international as well as Indian, and I always wonder, how did they manage to do all of it? And one has to really try. But if I have to think of, I forgot to mention one more area of my work, which is activism. Yes, so I'm not just an internet feminist, I'm also on the ground activist. So there, my role model or somebody I admire, I'm not exactly following in her footsteps, but somebody I admire is Medha Patkar, because she came from a research background and then she became an engaged activist. So a lot to learn. And naming one or two is very difficult. I've tried to name one, but in my book, I have cited all these different women. So several role models, starting from family to areas of work.
Right. So we have been talking about the struggles and the challenges. Also, you have named a few women that inspire you. So this year's the theme we have is break the bias. So what would you tell us, like how can we, reach to this theme, and how can we break the bias in this society, in the Indian society?
Yeah. So whether in India or across the globe, there are several biases. There isn't just one. I will just list them out. So even if we are talking about women, that is cis women, then there is the huge, patriarchal bias where you have to work doubly hard than men to prove yourself. So that still exists. There are several biases towards LGBTIQA plus community. So the world is not just made up of cis men and women. It is made up of several non-binary and queer individuals. And psychology in India is very slowly waking up to their existence and acknowledging them with respect. So those biases also have to, reduce, disappear, go away. Quite a challenge. As a country with so many social stratifications, all the marginalized categories have to also undergo discrimination and biases. So these are caste marginalities, these are class, that is the poor, these are religious minorities, and I already enumerated the sexual minorities. So we are not talking about one kind of bias, we are talking about a spectrum of biases, and we require change in thinking, emotions, and behavior on the ground.
Right.
It's quite a Herculean task. And it has to happen in all sectors. Just having DIE and saying, okay, now we have diversity is not enough. You really need representation. And this representation, participation in terms of education, employment, allowing entry to everybody who got left out is really, really essential. And we have to do away with these biases and discriminatory practices.
Yeah. So, ma'am, just to make a note, and for all the audience listening this, ma'am has written a book recently, Psychology and Gender, an Introduction. So, ma'am, could you tell us about the book in short?
Yeah. So I've written several books, and this is my latest book. And this, tries to encapsulate a lot of my research papers, my work on the ground for gender equality. And like the publishers say, they've called it the first of its kind, which merges the global with the local. Because good books in psychology and gender are all Western. And some of the Indian ones are not worth writing home about. So what I have tried is to look at several research areas, lived experiences. So there are 8 chapters. It's a reference book, which is for students at all levels, researchers, NGOs, activists, or any person who's interested. And in this book, I've encapsulated 8 areas. And I'm hoping to write a sequel. And what I have done is included very basic to very critical and trying, vexing kind of formulations. Okay, because there is a tendency to equate gender with women, which is not true. And then by default, middle class or upper class women. So gender actually is an analytical category, which ties up with all those social stratifications that I spoke about. And mainstream psychology has not engaged with it.
Absolutely.
So the book critiques mainstream psychology, mainstream psychotherapy, and a number of things, and comes out with what is called as reflexive psychology, critical psychology, and feminist psychology. So I hope especially the younger students, researchers, activists, whoever, anybody who's less than 40 will read it, feel inspired, and engage.
Yes, absolutely.
Older ones are also welcome, but because they are more rigid, I don't know how the book will speak to them. But as educators, it has gone to them as well, because it's teaching material, it's resource material.
Yeah, we do look forward reading the book.
Please read it, send me your feedback, and also write on Amazon, write your review there.
Yes. So, ma'am, considering the field of psychology, do you think that it is female oriented?
Yeah. Actually, it is female populated. So in terms of numbers, you will see more female students, but later on, they disappear. And there have been global studies about, once again, representation. Okay, so once again, when you look at sectors, who is heading these areas of psychology? And you'll see very few women.
True.
Yeah. So we have volume and numbers. So we are just populating psychology. But when it comes to making one's mark, whether it is American Psychological Association or Association of Psychological Sciences or across countries, you will still see women being marginalized. So whether it is academics or research or applied sectors, there is still a struggle. So you will only see us in numbers, but when it comes to, heading, decision-making and policy, we have to still push our way forward. Like, for example, we have a board of studies in the university where we design the syllabi, graduate, postgraduate, research, several courses. And my experience has been that we are all elected representatives. So there are 10, 11, but one or two of us have been the only women among those 11 who get elected. Okay, so you will see them in numbers, but when it comes to making a mark, being counted, it's a different story altogether. So I think we need a more nuanced understanding of this.
Yes, I mean, that's a very important point, and the differentiation that you made, that it is female populated and not just female oriented. That's a great
and one small addition that, very interestingly, again, I've put that in my book, of how subjects, and there's less time to illustrate all examples, but this applies across subjects. Female populated, it becomes a feminine subject. So in social science, you'll see boys opting for economics or pol science because they're told this is a feminine subject. It's very interesting. And then in the psych hierarchy, you'll see men and boys doing numbers and cognitive psychology.
Yeah.
Pushing developmental psychology, social, which are again thought to be softer intricacies of this. We see how gendered psychology is.
Right.
Any social science. It applies across disciplines.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, ma'am, you are a mother and you are a working professional and you are even looking after your house. So, there has been a concept of superwoman, a woman who can look after the house as well as go out and work, earn and then even come back from the office and again do the, household work. So what do you think about this concept of superwoman?
Yeah. So my PhD included looking at motherhood. Okay. And I did quite a bit of work and I still have to continue doing that work, which is both sad because things have not changed and which is all right. It is par for the course. One has to engage. Yeah. But to directly answer your question, again, you can read my book because there are a couple of chapters on that. Anybody who wants to do more extensive reading, but very quickly, supermom is a no-no. Mm-hmm. I would advise all younger women who are approaching motherhood or who are mothers. Why? Because it's a myth. And my favorite quote is, it's best that we are imperfectly perfect.
Right.
So super mom or superwoman has cost a lot of women. There are several studies which show the health impact and mental health impact. You want to be, it's called double drudgery or double burden. You're pushing the house, you're there at your workplace, you're trying to satisfy everyone and nobody is satisfied. Yeah, so wherever I take work-life balance workshops, I insist that men land up.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do them only for women. Because don't men have a personal life and a professional life which they should balance and participate?
Yes.
So whenever corporates, NGOs or whoever invites me, I said, unless it's more or less 50-50, I'm not going to take these sessions for women. Okay. So from, super women, we don't need. So we need co-parenting. We need more humanity. And women should stop pushing themselves in this direction. It comes with a cost. We can be less than super, no problem.
That's a great note, ma'am, actually. Somewhere we have to have the balance between, women working and men getting educated, where they should understand their responsibilities towards them.
And men not just supporting.
Yeah.
For 20-30 years, we are saying supporting. I want to see them participating.
Yeah.
Shouldering and co-parenting and co-everything, whatever there is to be done.
Great, great.
At home or at the workplace.
Absolutely, ma'am. Yeah. So we are at the end of the interview. And for the conclusion, I would like to ask you, what advice would you give to the young women who would want to do their career in psychology, and in general who are pursuing their career and handling household work as well?
So two sets of answers. One for psychology is, again, and it applies to men too, but we are commemorating women, so all right. So I think we should move on to more critical fields, unexplored fields,
Right.
and not engage in the done to death, where it's proving the obvious, whether it's in research or psychometry or NGOs or wherever. There are newer challenges. Now, COVID has thrown up so many challenges. It tells us that community mental health is an important area. So we need people there. So younger people should look at these. Of course, this is intensive work. This is not, happy-go-lucky scene. It's tough. But we need more and more youngsters in these fields. So these critical, cutting edge, okay, so you're interested in cognitive neuropsychology, which is like a buzzword. All right, but there are ignored topics and areas even within that. Find those. What is the point in doing stuff that has already been done for 100 years, 50 years, 30 years? So you have to find a segment of unexplored and areas as well as topics or whatever it is. And this is what I mentor my students in. Graduates, postgraduates, researchers. You come with an idea and you want to move either in research or application. There are unexplored domains and I help them to identify. So I have my students now working in areas where people are not looking forward to working. So these are areas where we need to, shift and move, because everybody trying for the typical space, then obviously there's saturation.
Absolutely.
Okay? So you have to really think out of the box. For example, one of my students is doing sports psychology. But in sports psychology, you have cultural studies in sports psychology instead of the typical sports psychology. Public health is the larger area where psychology students, whatever their specialization, whether counseling or clinical, should enter. Because now we know that COVID is a public health challenge. It's not just psychology or clinical psychology. That is too narrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have programs both in India and abroad, and that is where you should shift. And you need to have this information and knowledge. People like me are around, and there are a few more. So you should understand that these are essential domains now, and not do the really dakyanusi stuff now. And it's so easy. You go to Google Scholar, and you will see that if 2,000 people have done it, why do you want to do the same thing?
The same thing, yes.
Yeah? So we have to, move on to unexplored domains. And it's possible now. If people with no baggage and background are able to do it, then those who have all these facilities should think. But then you have to come out of your comfort zone. Yeah. So we can't do ivory tower anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And we have to leave it to others, because psychology, my favorite quote is, psychology, which is a subject which connects individual to society and society back to the individual.
Yes.
Somewhere we've forgotten that. Mainstream departments, at least. I'm not speaking about my work and my students. They have internships and they are working with, they're given exposure to community-based and grassroots level organizations. The other small quick point is, we think of psychology in terms of, clinical counseling. Agreed. These are the larger areas. They have been historically also. But educational psychology with non-formal education, their children's emotional health is now being targeted thanks to COVID. It was earlier, but now it is increased. They need psychologists. But you want to sit somewhere and do counseling and therapy, that you are not going to get too many jobs. And everybody doing solo practice is not viable. You'll have to shut shop.
Absolutely.
Okay? So being aware and mindful about needs, and then training in those areas according to your own interest and also pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Then there are plenty of opportunities. You have to just look for them and change yourself to fit them. Another small point is that all the areas where MSWs, social workers, and MBAs are working are available to psychologists if we train in the ways in which these two disciplines are training their people. That is something I've tried to do. That my IO students can compete with MBA and my ClinSci students can compete with MSWs.
That's a huge thing, ma'am, that you're working on and mentoring all these students. Absolutely. So, to summarize this entire interview, we have, touched the topics of feminism. We have touched what all challenges women face. And, basically in the career, in the psychology career, what women are facing and how they should progress ahead, and being mindful about your interests and the needs. That is one thing that I will take away from this interview. And with this, I would like to conclude this interview. And I really thank you, ma'am, for giving us the time and so much valuable knowledge and opinions. We really look forward to reading your book as well. And let's connect again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I hope a lot of viewers do watch.
Yes.
And they can also reach out to me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.